The red dust of Mars swirled around Dr. Lisa Martinez's environmental suit as she carefully brushed away centuries of sediment. The morning sun cast long shadows across the dig site, where her team had been working for the past 3 months. Something about this particular location had always felt different to her, though she couldn't explain why. "Dr. Martinez, you might want to see this," called out her assistant through the radio. The young researcher's voice trembled with excitement. Lisa made her way across the excavation site, her boots leaving clear prints in the Martian soil. The area they were investigating lay inside a massive crater, one that had caught their attention due to its unusual electromagnetic readings. As she approached the spot where her assistant stood, she noticed an odd gleam beneath the rust-colored surface. It wasn't the typical shine of ice or mineral deposits they usually found. This was different, almost metallic, but with a shimmer that seemed to bend the light around it. "Start documenting everything," Lisa ordered, pulling out her specialized scanning equipment. The device's screen displayed readings that made her heart race. Energy signatures. Active energy signatures. She couldn't keep the amazement from her voice. The team worked carefully for the next 6 hours, removing layer after layer of compacted Martian soil. As the sun reached its peak, they had uncovered what appeared to be an entrance, smooth and clearly artificial, with markings that resembled no known human or theoretical alien language. Back in the pressurized base camp, Lisa pulled off her helmet and wiped the sweat from her forehead. Her dark hair clung to her face as she downloaded the day's readings to the main computer. The patterns were unlike anything she had seen in her 15 years of tenorchaeology. The base's communication system crackled to life. "Mars Research Station Alpha. This is Orbital Defense Command. Please acknowledge." Lisa pressed the response button. "This is Dr. Martinez at Alpha Station. We read you. Command." "Doctor, we're picking up some unusual energy spikes from your location. Are you conducting any power-intensive experiments?" She glanced at her readings again. "Negative, Command. But we've discovered something. Something big. I recommend initiating Protocol 7 Alpha." There was a long pause before the reply came. "Confirmed, Doctor. Stand by for priority communication from Commander Walsh." Lisa turned to her team, who had gathered in the command center. "Everyone, prepare all data for immediate transmission." This just became a top priority situation. The main screen flickered to life, showing Commander Peter Walsh's stern face. His graying hair and the dark circles under his eyes spoke of many sleepless nights. "Dr. Martinez, what exactly are we looking at?" Lisa sent the latest scans. "Sir, we found what appears to be an artificial structure predating any known civilization. The energy readings suggest it's still active after what must be millions of years." Walsh's expression tightened. "Doctor, what you're about to hear is classified at the highest level. 20 minutes ago, our deep space arrays detected major movements in the Centaurian fleet. They're mobilizing in numbers we've never seen before." The commander paused, letting the information sink in. "We need to know if what you found could be a weapon." "The Centaurians are coming, Doctor, and this time they're not sending a scouting force." Lisa's mind raced back to the devastation of the first Centaurian attack 3 years ago. The aliens had struck without warning, testing Earth's defenses with a small but powerful fleet. Humanity had barely pushed them back, and only at a terrible cost. "Sir," she said, pulling up the strange symbols they'd photographed. "These markings suggest this facility was built by a civilization far more advanced than either humans or Centaurians. And look at this." She highlighted a series of recurring patterns. These appear to reference temporal mechanics. The commander leaned forward. "Are you saying?" "Yes, sir. I believe we found evidence of technology that can manipulate time itself. If we can understand it, this could change everything." Walsh was quiet for a long moment. "Doctor, I'm sending a special science team to your location. In the meantime, continue your investigation, but exercise extreme caution. If the Centaurians detect any unusual energy signatures." "Understood, sir. We'll be careful." After the communication ended, Lisa stared at the strange symbols on her screen. The discovery filled her with both excitement and dread. Whatever they had found, it was about to become humanity's best hope for survival. Over the next few days, Lisa and her team worked around the clock. They managed to open the entrance, revealing a vast chamber filled with machinery that defied conventional physics. The devices seemed to bend light and space around them, and their power source continued to function after eons of abandonment. One morning, as Lisa studied the central control panel, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The symbols weren't just a language, they were equations. Complex mathematical formulas describing the manipulation of time itself. She immediately contacted Commander Walsh. "Sir, we've confirmed it. These aren't just weapons, they're time weapons. The civilization that built this place found a way to use time itself as a tool of war. Can we use them?" Walsh's question was direct. Lisa looked at the enormous machinery surrounding her. "With time and study, yes. But sir, we need to understand something crucial. These weapons don't just kill. They can erase things from existence. They can age entire fleets in seconds or trap them in endless temporal loops. This is power beyond anything humanity has ever wielded." "Doctor," Walsh's voice was grim, "the Centaurians have just passed Saturn's orbit. We estimate we have less than 2 months before they reach Earth. Whatever moral debates we might have about these weapons, they'll have to wait. Humanity's survival comes first." Lisa nodded slowly, knowing he was right. She looked around at her team, seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their eyes. They had uncovered something that could save humanity, but at what cost? "Understood, Commander. We'll begin preparations for reverse engineering immediately. But sir, there's something else you should know." She hesitated for a moment. "The civilization that built these weapons. According to the data we've decoded, they didn't just disappear. They erased themselves from time, apparently to prevent this technology from spreading across the galaxy. They thought it was too dangerous to exist." The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Finally, Walsh spoke. "Then we'll have to be wiser than they were, Doctor. We don't have the luxury of their choice. Humanity faces extinction, and we'll use whatever tools we have to prevent that. May God help us all." As the communication ended, Lisa turned back to the ancient machines. Somewhere in this facility lay the power to reshape time itself. Now they just had to figure out how to use it before the Centaurians arrived, and hope they didn't destroy themselves in the process. The Martian wind howled outside, carrying dust from ancient storms across the surface of the red planet. Inside the facility, humanity's best minds were about to unlock powers that would change the course of history, if they survived long enough to use them. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the Human Defense Council gathered in their fortified chamber. The room was silent except for the soft hum of air filtration systems and the gentle clicking of computers. 50 of humanity's most important leaders sat around a massive circular table, their faces lit by the blue glow of holographic displays. Admiral Carol Bennett stood at the center of the room, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. The constant weight of command showed in the lines around her eyes, but her voice remained strong and clear as she addressed the council. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Centaurian fleet has passed Jupiter's orbit. Our latest scans show over 3,000 warships, more than 10 times the force they sent in their first attack." She gestured, and a 3D map of the solar system appeared above the table. Red dots marked the advancing alien fleet, while blue markers showed Earth's defensive positions. At their current speed, they will reach Earth in 6 weeks. This is not a scouting mission or a raid. This is an extinction-level event. The room erupted in worried murmurs. A council member from India raised his hand. "What about our defensive capabilities? Surely our technology has improved since the last attack." Admiral Bennett's expression remained grim. "We've strengthened our defenses, yes, but even with everything we have, our best simulations show that we can only destroy 30% of their fleet before they break through. After that," she didn't need to finish the sentence. The main doors opened, and Chief Scientist Nathan Ross hurried in. He carried a tablet computer and looked like he hadn't slept in days. "My apologies for the interruption, but we've just received critical data from Mars." The council president nodded. "Proceed, Dr. Ross." Nathan connected his tablet to the room's display system. "As you know, Dr. Martinez's team discovered an ancient facility on Mars containing temporal weapons technology. In the past week, they've made extraordinary progress in understanding how these weapons work." The holographic display changed to show complex diagrams and equations. Nathan quickly explained in simple terms. These devices can create localized disruptions in time itself. They can age objects thousands of years in seconds, trap them in time loops, or even remove them from our timeline completely. A military representative leaned forward. "Are you suggesting we use these weapons against the Centaurian fleet?" "That's exactly what I'm suggesting," Nathan replied. "Dr. Martins believes we can adapt this technology to our existing defense platforms. We could have a working system in place before the Centaurians arrive." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, the council president spoke. "The ethical implications of such weapons are troubling. We would be the first civilization in known history to weaponize time itself." Admiral Bennett stepped forward again. "With all due respect, Mr. President, we're out of options. The Centaurians have made their intentions clear. They want Earth, and they don't care if humanity survives the takeover." Nathan brought up new images on the display. "There's something else you need to know. The civilization that built these weapons left warnings. They believed this technology was too dangerous to exist. In fact, they apparently used it one final time on themselves." Gasps filled the room. The council president's face paled. "They committed species-wide suicide." "Not exactly," Nathan explained. "According to Dr. Martinez's translations, they erased themselves from time itself. They removed their entire civilization from history to prevent this technology from spreading." A council member from Brazil stood up. "Then we should destroy this technology immediately, if it's so dangerous that its creators eliminated themselves." "And then what?" Admiral Bennett interrupted. "We face our extinction with dignity. Die knowing we took the moral high ground." She pointed at the display showing the approaching Centaurian fleet. "Those ships carry enough firepower to turn Earth's surface to glass. They have already shown us they don't believe in mercy or negotiation." The council president raised his hands for silence. "We need to vote. The stakes couldn't be higher. We're choosing between using a potentially catastrophic weapon or facing certain extinction." Nathan cleared his throat. "There is one more thing to consider. Dr. Martinez's team found evidence that the original builders included safeguards in their technology. The weapons can only be used in defensive situations, and they have built-in limitations to prevent the complete erasure of space-time." The voting process took 3 hours. Council members argued back and forth, weighing the moral implications against humanity's survival. In the end, the decision wasn't even close. "The motion passes with 43 votes in favor," the council president announced. "We will proceed with the development and deployment of temporal weapons technology." He looked around the room solemnly. "May our descendants forgive us for what we're about to do." Admiral Bennett immediately began issuing orders. "Dr. Ross, contact Dr. Martinez. Tell her she has full authorization to proceed with weapon development. I want daily progress reports and immediate notification of any breakthroughs or problems." "Yes, Admiral," Nathan replied, already typing on his tablet. "I'll also send her the new security protocols. From this moment on, her facility will be under maximum protection." The council president stood, his face showing the weight of their decision. "This meeting is adjourned. What we've discussed here today remains classified at the highest level. As far as the public knows, we're simply strengthening our conventional defenses." As the council members filed out, Admiral Bennett stayed behind with Nathan. They looked at the holographic display showing the Centaurian fleet's advance. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Nathan asked quietly. The Admiral watched the red dots moving inexorably toward Earth. I think we made the only choice we could. The real question is, can we control this power once we have it? The original builders couldn't, Nathan reminded her. Then we'll have to be better than they were, Bennett replied. We don't have the luxury of failure. Not with those ships getting closer every second. They stood in silence, watching the display. Somewhere in the void between Jupiter and Mars, thousands of alien ships moved through the darkness, unaware that humanity was about to change the rules of warfare forever. Back on Mars, Dr. Martinez received the Council's decision. She gathered her team and gave them the news. The Council has given us full authorization. From this moment on, we work round the clock. Humanity's survival depends on us understanding and adapting this technology. She looked at the ancient machines surrounding them, their strange surfaces still shimmering with temporal energy. Time itself is about to become our weapon, she said softly. Let's hope we're wise enough to handle it. The Martian night fell outside their facility, but inside, the lights burned bright as humanity's best minds raced to master powers they barely understood. The countdown to either salvation or destruction had begun. The orange methane clouds of Titan swirled outside the reinforced windows of humanity's most advanced research facility. Inside, Dr. Lisa Martinez stared at the holographic display showing their latest failed test. Next to her, Dr. Alan Wright ran his hands through his messy hair in frustration. That's the third containment field collapse today, Alan said, checking the readings. We're missing something important about how these temporal fields work. Lisa nodded, her eyes tired from endless hours of study. The Human Defense Council had moved their entire operation to Titan 2 weeks ago. The moon's thick atmosphere helped hide their energy signatures from any Centaurian scout ships that might be watching. Show me the original symbols again, she said, pulling up the images from Mars. The ancient writing glowed softly in the dim light of the lab. Look at this pattern here. We've been assuming it's a power regulation formula, but what if it's actually showing us the structure of time itself? Alan moved closer to the display, his eyes widening. You might be right. Computer, run simulation Alpha 7 with the new interpretation. The massive quantum computers hummed as they processed the new calculations. On the testing floor below, the prototype temporal device began to glow with a strange, shifting light. Energy patterns are stable, one of the technicians reported. Temporal field forming, holding at 15%, 20%. Lisa held her breath. Their previous attempts had all failed at 25% power. The device continued to hum, its glow becoming brighter. 30%, 35%, 40%, and holding steady. The room burst into applause. Lisa felt tears in her eyes as she watched the stable temporal field shimmer in the test chamber. It had taken 3 weeks of non-stop work, but they'd finally achieved a stable field. Send the data to Admiral Bennett immediately, she ordered, and get me a secure line to Lieutenant Cooper at Earth Defense Command. The main screen lit up with Lieutenant Susan Cooper's face. Despite being millions of miles away on Earth, the quantum communication system made it feel like she was in the room with them. Dr. Martinez, please tell me you have good news, Susan said. The Centaurian fleet has increased speed. They'll reach Mars in 10 days. We've done it, Susan. We have a stable temporal field. Now we need to start training your weapons crews to handle these devices. Susan's relief was visible. I'll select our best teams and have them ready for virtual training within 6 hours. How many devices can you build in time? Alan checked their production estimates. With the automated fabrication systems running at full capacity, we can have 12 units ready before the Centaurians reach Mars. It's not many, but each one can affect a large area of space. Let's hope it's enough, Susan replied. I'll send you the crew's profiles. These men and women are the best we have. Over the next week, Lisa and Alan worked with the defense crews through virtual reality simulations. The temporal weapons required perfect timing and precise calculations. Even a small mistake could have devastating consequences. Remember, Lisa explained to the crews, "These devices don't just destroy ships. They can age them thousands of years in seconds, trap them in time loops, or remove them from our timeline completely. You need to be absolutely certain of your targets before firing." The training sessions were intense. Some crews couldn't handle the psychological pressure of wielding such power. Others showed natural talent for understanding the complex temporal mechanics involved. One evening, as Lisa reviewed the day's training data, Alan brought her a cup of coffee. "The latest intelligence reports show the Centaurians have started launching probe ships toward Mars," he said quietly. Lisa took a sip of coffee, her hand shaking slightly. "How are the production lines doing?" "We've completed 8 devices so far. The 9th will be ready tomorrow." "But Lisa," he hesitated, "I've been running some calculations about the possible side effects of using multiple devices at once." She looked up at him. "What did you find?" Alan pulled up a complex diagram on his tablet. "If we activate too many temporal fields in the same region of space, we could create a cascade effect. The time distortions could spread beyond our control." "Like what happened to the civilization that built these weapons," Lisa whispered. "Exactly. We need to be incredibly careful about how we use these devices. One mistake could tear apart the fabric of space-time itself." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from Commander Walsh. "Doctor, we've detected Centaurian scout ships entering Mars orbit. They'll discover the ancient facility soon." Lisa's heart raced. "The self-destruct charges are in place." "On your command, sir." Walsh nodded grimly. "Do it. We can't let them find any trace of the temporal technology." Lisa entered the activation code. On her screen, she watched as carefully placed explosives collapsed the Martian facility, burying the ancient secrets under tons of rock and sand. A piece of her heart broke watching the priceless archaeological site being destroyed. But they had no choice. "All evidence has been eliminated, sir," she reported. "The Centaurians will find nothing but ruins." "Good work, Doctor. Now focus on getting those weapons ready. Earth's fate depends on them." As the call ended, Lisa turned to Alan. "Let's run another training session. We need these crews to be perfect." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. More devices were completed and tested. Training sessions continued around the clock. Everyone felt the pressure of time running out as the massive Centaurian fleet drew closer to Mars. Lieutenant Cooper's daily reports grew more urgent. Earth's defensive fleets were in position. Ground-based weapons were ready, but everyone knew that conventional weapons wouldn't be enough against such overwhelming numbers. In her private quarters late one night, Lisa recorded a message for future historians. "We stand at a turning point in human history," she spoke softly. "Tomorrow we begin deploying the temporal weapons. We understand the risks. We know what happened to those who created this technology. But we face extinction, and we choose to fight." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "If you're watching this, it means we succeeded. At least partially. Humanity survived. I hope you can understand why we chose to use these weapons. And I hope you're wiser than we were about how to handle such power." The next morning, as Lisa watched the crews prepare the temporal devices for deployment, she remembered the warnings they'd found on Mars. The ancient builders had chosen to erase themselves from time rather than risk this technology spreading. "We're ready, Dr. Martinez," Alan reported. "The first wave of devices will reach their deployment positions in 6 hours." Lisa nodded, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. "Humanity's next chapter begins today," she said. "Let's hope we're writing a story of survival, not extinction." Outside their facility, Titan's methane clouds continued their endless dance, unaware that beneath them, humanity was preparing to change the nature of warfare forever. Commander Peter Walsh stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Northern Star, watching as his fleet took up their positions around Saturn's orbit. The massive gas giant's rings provided perfect cover for their ships, while its strong magnetic field helped mask their energy signatures. "Status report," he ordered, his voice calm despite the tension filling the bridge. His second-in-command pulled up a holographic display. All 12 temporal devices are in position, sir. Earth Defense has confirmed successful integration with our targeting systems. Walsh nodded, studying the complex web of positions they planned. Each temporal device had to be placed at exact coordinates to create an overlapping field of effect. One wrong calculation could doom the entire defense plan. Back on Titan, Dr. Lisa Martinez and Dr. Alan Wright monitored the deployment from their control center. Screens covered the walls, showing real-time data from each device. Device 7's temporal field is fluctuating, Alan reported, his fingers flying over the controls. Adjusting containment parameters now. Lisa watched the reading stabilize. Good catch. Remember, everyone, these devices are incredibly sensitive. Even a small power fluctuation could create unpredictable time distortions. Lieutenant Susan Cooper's voice came through the communication system from Earth Command. Dr. Martinez, we're picking up increased activity from the Centaurian fleet. They've started moving their heavy warships to the front of their formation. They're expecting a conventional battle, Lisa said, bringing up the enemy fleet's positioning. They have no idea what we're about to hit them with. In orbit around Earth, defense crews ran through their final training simulations. The temporal weapons required perfect coordination between multiple teams. Each gunner had to understand not just their own target, but how their shots would affect the overall time-space distortion field. Remember your training, Lisa's voice echoed through their headsets. These weapons don't fire like normal guns. You're not shooting at where the enemy is. You're shooting at where they exist in time itself. One of the gunners, a young woman named Kelly Bennett, spoke up. Dr. Martinez, what happens if we miss? What happens to the space between our target and where the temporal effect hits? Lisa's response was serious. That's why accuracy is crucial. A missed shot could create a temporal dead zone, an area where time flows differently than the space around it. We can't risk creating permanent damage to the fabric of space-time. Commander Walsh's voice joined the conversation. All ships, be advised. Long-range scouts report the Centaurian fleet has passed Mars orbit. They'll reach our position in approximately 18 hours. The news sent a wave of nervous energy through the defense forces. This was really happening. Humanity was about to use weapons that could manipulate time itself against an alien invasion fleet. In the Titan facility, Alan approached Lisa with a concerned look. I've been running final calculations on the temporal field overlap. There's something you need to see. He showed her a simulation on his tablet. If too many devices fire at once, the temporal effects could cascade. We might create a rupture in time itself. Lisa studied the data, her face growing serious. How many devices can we safely use simultaneously? No more than 4. Any more than that, and we risk losing control of the time distortions. She immediately contacted Commander Walsh. Commander, we need to adjust our firing protocol. We can only activate 4 devices at any given moment. We'll have to coordinate our attacks in waves. Walsh frowned. That leaves us vulnerable between volleys. The Centaurians could slip ships through the gaps. It's better than accidentally erasing half the solar system from existence, Lisa replied grimly. The commander agreed, and they spent the next several hours revising their battle plans. The defense fleet split into 3 groups, each protecting 4 temporal devices. They would fire in sequence, giving each set of devices time to stabilize between shots. As the hours counted down, Lieutenant Cooper coordinated with Earth's ground defenses. If any Centaurian ships make it past our outer defense line, they'll face a second temporal field around Earth itself. We've positioned our remaining conventional weapons as a last resort. In his quarters, Commander Walsh recorded what might be his final message home. We face an enemy that outnumbers us 10 to 1. They have technology far beyond our conventional weapons. But today, humanity will show them something they've never seen before. We will fight them not just in space, but in time itself. The emergency broadcast system activated worldwide, warning civilians to prepare for possible temporal anomalies. Scientists had no way to predict how the weapon's effects might ripple through space-time. On Titan, Lisa and Alan made their final checks of the temporal devices. Each one hummed with power, ready to tear holes in the fabric of reality itself. All defense crews, this is Dr. Martinez, Lisa announced over the general communication channel. In a few hours, you will use weapons that no human has ever wielded before. You carry not just the fate of Earth, but the very nature of time itself in your hands. Trust your training. Trust each other. And remember, once these weapons fire, there's no going back. The universe itself will change. Commander Walsh watched on his main view screen as the massive Centaurian fleet approached. Their ships looked like a swarm of metal insects, their hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight. All ships, battle stations, he ordered. Temporal device crews, begin power-up sequence. May God have mercy on our souls, because we're about to rewrite the laws of physics themselves. Throughout the solar system, humanity's combined forces waited in tense silence. On Earth, in orbit, and on distant Titan, every person knew they were about to witness something unprecedented in human history. The temporal devices pulsed with strange energy, their fields distorting the very space around them. In a few hours, these machines would either save humanity or prove that some powers were too dangerous for any species to wield. As the Centaurian fleet drew closer, Lisa whispered a quiet prayer. Let us be worthy of this power. Let us be better than those who came before us. Let us save our world without destroying the very fabric of time itself. The final countdown had begun. The first Centaurian ships appeared as bright dots against the darkness of space. Commander Peter Walsh watched from the bridge of the Northern Star as the alien fleet approached Saturn's orbit. Their massive warships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with strange symbols. All ships, maintain position, Walsh ordered. Remember your training. Wait for my signal. On Titan, Dr. Lisa Martinez and Dr. Alan Wright monitored the temporal devices. Each machine pulsed with energy, creating slight distortions in the space around them. Temporal fields are stable, Ellen reported. All 12 devices showing green status. Lieutenant Susan Cooper's voice came through from Earth Command. Centaurian fleet is moving exactly as predicted. Their heavy warships are in front, screening for their invasion forces. They're expecting a conventional battle, Lisa said, watching the enemy formations. They have no idea what's coming. The Centaurian fleet moved closer, their ships spreading out into attack formation. Suddenly, their front line opened fire. Bright energy beams cut through space, aimed at the human defense fleet's positions. All ships, hold position, Walsh commanded. Let them come into the temporal zone. The energy beams splashed harmlessly against the Saturn's rings, superheating ice particles but missing the hidden human ships. The Centaurian fleet pressed forward, encouraged by the lack of resistance. They're entering optimal range, Lisa announced. First wave of devices is ready. Walsh took a deep breath. All crews, prepare to fire temporal devices 1 through 4. Target the front line of their fleet. The gunners on each station carefully aligned their targeting systems. They had trained for this moment for weeks, but nothing could truly prepare them for using weapons that could manipulate time itself. Fire, Walsh ordered. 4 temporal devices activated simultaneously. The space around the Centaurian front line began to shimmer and twist. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the impossible began. The lead Centaurian ships started to age. Their metal hulls rusted and corroded in seconds. Entire sections of their ships crumbled to dust. The crews inside experienced thousands of years in mere moments. First wave successful, Lisa reported, her voice tense. 27 enemy ships neutralized. Temporal fields are stable. The Centaurian fleet's orderly formation broke apart as ships tried to avoid the strange effect they were witnessing. Their return fire became chaotic and uncoordinated. Second wave, prepare to fire, Walsh commanded. Devices 5 through 8, target their command ships. The second set of temporal devices activated. This time, the effects were different. Instead of aging, the targeted Centaurian ships became trapped in time loops. They repeated the same few seconds over and over, unable to break free. Enemy fleet is in chaos, Susan reported from Earth. They're trying to regroup, but their command structure is disrupted. Lissa watched the readings carefully. Temporal field overlap is approaching critical levels. We need to let the distortions settle before firing the final wave. The Centaurians, finally understanding the threat they faced, launched a desperate counterattack. Hundreds of ships broke formation, charging directly at the human defense line. They're trying to overwhelm us before we can fire again, Walsh said. All conventional weapons, open fire. Buy us time for the temporal fields to stabilize. Human ships emerged from their hiding places in Saturn's rings, engaging the attacking Centaurians with traditional weapons. The space around Saturn erupted in a spectacular battle, energy beams and explosions lighting up the darkness. Temporal fields have stabilized, Alan announced after several tense minutes. Final wave is ready. All ships, clear the target zone, Walsh ordered. Prepare to fire devices 9 through 12. The remaining Centaurian ships, realizing what was coming, tried to retreat. But they had pushed too far into the trap, and their fastest escape route was blocked by the temporal distortions from the first two waves. Final wave, fire, Walsh commanded. The last 4 temporal devices activated. This time, the effect was even more dramatic. The targeted area of space began to fold in on itself. Centaurian ships caught in the effect simply vanished, erased from the timeline, as if they had never existed. Enemy fleet is in full retreat, Susan reported, her voice filled with awe. Surviving ships are jumping out of the solar system. Lisa checked the temporal readings with shaking hands. Field interaction is within safe parameters. No cascade effect detected. We did it. The bridge of the Northern Star erupted in cheers. Across the defense fleet, crews celebrated humanity's first victory using temporal warfare. But Commander Walsh noticed that Lisa and Alan didn't join in the celebration. Dr. Martinez, he called. What's wrong? Lisa's voice was serious. Commander, the temporal distortions we created, they're not disappearing as quickly as we calculated. The fabric of space-time around Saturn has been changed. What does that mean? Walsh asked. It means we've done exactly what the ancient builders feared, Alan explained. We've created permanent changes in the structure of time itself. Small changes now, but if these weapons are ever used again. Walsh understood. They had saved Earth, but at what cost? The power to manipulate time was too dangerous to use regularly. Each use risked further damage to the very fabric of reality. In the following days, as the Defense Fleet regrouped and damage reports came in, the Human Defense Council met to decide the fate of the temporal weapons. The debate lasted for hours. Finally, Lisa stood before the council to make her recommendation. We should destroy them, she said simply. The ancient builders were right. This power is too dangerous to keep. But what if the Centaurians return? A council member asked. What if we face an even greater threat? Then we'll face it with conventional weapons, Lisa replied. Because if we keep using these devices, we risk something far worse than defeat. We risk unraveling the very fabric of time itself. The council voted. In the end, they agreed. The temporal weapons would be destroyed, and all research data would be erased. Humanity would have to find other ways to defend itself. On Titan, Lisa and Alan supervised the dismantling of their equipment. As the last temporal device powered down, Lisa felt a mix of relief and sadness. We proved we could master this technology, Alan said quietly, and we proved we're wise enough to give it up. Lisa nodded, watching as the strange machines were taken apart. Maybe that's the real victory here. Not that we beat the Centaurians, but that we didn't lose ourselves in the process. The temporal weapons were gone, but their effects remained. Around Saturn, space itself bore the scars of humanity's first and last use of time as a weapon. A reminder to future generations that some powers were too dangerous to wield, no matter how noble the cause. As Lisa looked out at Titan's orange clouds one last time, she thought about the ancient builders who had faced this same choice. They had chosen to erase themselves from time rather than risk this power spreading. Humanity had chosen a different path, to keep their place in history, but to voluntarily give up the most powerful weapons ever created. "We're ready," she told Commander Walsh over the communication system. "Initiate the final deletion sequence." With a few keystrokes, the last traces of temporal weapon technology disappeared from human databases. The greatest scientific discovery in human history became nothing more than a memory, a secret that would die with those who had witnessed it. Humanity had looked into the abyss of ultimate power and chosen to step back. They would face whatever came next as they always had, with courage, ingenuity, and their humanity intact.